Hi, I'm Corey, and I'm filled with the power of too many tapes. Ugh. It's more of an intellectual power. Been feeling kind of puny lately. A little low, lacking motivation, listless, adrift on a sea of self-loathing and anxiety. What do I need? A purpose, a reason, the fall of capitalism in our time? Nah, what I really need is an awkward pep talk from a PE teacher who can smash cinder blocks with his elbows. And what's this I see? Another Power Team tape on the horizon? I've covered the Power Team's rise, fall, and overall impact, their terrible, terrible comic books, and John Jacobs' sneaky secular pep talks. I've even posted a bunch of their old VHS tapes on my second channel, Too Many Tapes. You may want to go and watch this episode's tape right now if you're so inclined. Yes, I've extensively covered the Power Team over the last 4 or 5 years of this channel. Gosh, maybe over-covered them, but dang it, nobody else is running with this thing right now unless you count Jody Hill and Danny McBride's The Righteous Gemstones, and they only scratched the surface of the wild and wacky world of evangelical bodybuilders in Season 2. So the task falls to me. It's my solemn duty. I must document and dissect every piece of John Jacobs-related visual material I can get my hands on. I can't stop now. Sometimes I'm going to bring my over-researched A-game. Sometimes I'm going to put on my media criticism hat. Today, this is more of a ceaseless windmill dunk on a piece of television so ill-conceived that it barely even holds together. Today's tape is among the rarest in my collection. Up until about a month ago, I didn't even realize it existed. You see, we've already talked about John Jacobs' unsurprisingly tone-deaf anti-suicide tirade in our last episode, Let's Dunk on John Jacobs and the Power Team Again. I like that title. And we talked about how this secular video almost certainly seemed like a ploy. Part of his pitch to get inside schools where he could bait children into coming to religious sermons. Don't these right-wing types have a name for adults trying to lure kids into a particular lifestyle they think they wouldn't have come to on their own? Maybe that's a rant for another day. Besides, isn't it more fun to be more motivated? To figure out how to best live your life? Because I feel like we're on the verge of something. The edge, if you will. The cutting edge, if you will. John Jacobs empower the cutting edge, if you will, yet again. John Jacobs empower the cutting edge of excellence, if you... Oh, you won't? Fair, I overplayed it. Stick around, though. The video is fun, at least. First up, I rarely get into this, but we gotta talk about the box. The box is glorious. Look at these men and their sleeveless tees! I suppose when your arms are that big, it's more of a practical concern than a style choice, but the arms aren't the real concern here, it's the swords. Big swords. Many swords. The guy in the front here has a sword and a Bible, because the thing I desperately want when holding a two-handed edged weapon is some reading material. I get it, though. The swords are they're the edge of excellence. Moving on to the video, we have the same setup as last time, a tackily edited montage of stunts set to Eye of the Tiger that leads to our title card, which, again, has a sword theme. Not that John Jacobs will ever mention a sword in his sermon. We're back in that same abandoned television studio, which is littered with the vast destruction left behind by his cadre of mountainous muscle men. Jacobs starts his spiel by talking about wandering the halls of high schools and listening to the conversations of children. Very creepy, John. And what are the kids talking about? The pressures of life. And probably the weird jacked dude furiously scribbling notes in the hallway. For a public speaker, Jacobs has the oddest stage presence. He's full of conviction, sure, but there's something in his eyes. He looks so manic all of the time. It also doesn't help that he's constantly doing this little lip lick thing.
As I walk down the hallways of most schools, this is the kind of talk I hear. Life's a bummer. My parents want me to do this. My friends want me to do that. My parents are breaking up. School's tougher than I thought it was. Are you ready for the test? I'm not gonna make it.
Just a strange energy to start with. And unlike the previous video, there's less polish on Jacobs here. It feels like he recorded a block of these inspirational speeches in one go, and this was that squishy middle one that didn't quite come together the way he would have hoped. Speaking from experience on that one, unfortunately, this may or may not be that episode for me. Let's hope not. We good? Are you satisfied with your Too Many Tapes experience? Please listen closely, as our options have recently changed.
I mean, today, you have so many influences. The rock groups are singing about rebellion, resentment, wildlife, all types of things. Your life's caught in a flurry. School's mounting up for you. Is things closing in on you?
This is why you get the teleprompter, John. It makes a world of difference. Side note, what you won't be hearing in these clips is all of the 80s licensed music Jacobs layers over his dime store self-help hucksterism. I took all of that out with an online AI tool because copyright strikes are obnoxious, and I don't have the skill to pull this stuff out on my own. I'm a magician, not a wizard. Jacob stumbles his way through a setup here, which is pretty simple. Teens are stressed. They're caught at an important inflection point. Every teen is a bundle of potential. They don't know who they are yet or who they can be, and they're surrounded on all sides by dubious influences. In terms of insight, it's about as trite as you can get, but he's not wrong.
Talking about they just need to get away, or I'm living for spring break! Help! I'm living for the weekend. I'm so glad it's Friday!
We don't have time to dwell on his condescension to these kids, though, because we have to witness our first incredible feat of strength, which is a yoked dad who is literally named Ron Powers running through some 2x4s. He must be a junior member. He's not on the photo with the swords. Jacob shines in this setup here, though. He's genuinely gifted at inflating the scale and risk of these pretty ho-hum stunts. He sells the danger. He sells the injury that could occur. In another life, he would have made an amazing color commentator for professional wrestling. Now that I mention it, he does have a bit of a Jerry the King Lawler vibe to him.
Ladies and gentlemen, this could crush most men's chests, send their ribs plunging to the lungs and heart. This is very, very difficult and very, very dangerous. So far, doing this, we've had 2 men knocked unconscious.
Ron charges his energy, smashes through the boards, crumples to the ground in agony, and pops right back up to give a little flex. What this has to do with Jacobs' point? Who knows? Because now it's time to hear about his fabulous mountain climbing / bow hunting vacation.
I was on the top of a mountain. My first experience on the top of a mountain. And I was standing on an edge, looking across, the snow was falling, and this mountain was absolutely incredible. And I thought, this is the mountaintop experience.
Humble brag. He's preaching against a mediocre life here, moving from surviving to thriving. And he's talking a big game. He's guaranteeing we can reach every goal we have in life. Live a life on the ultimate edge of excellence. And what do we have to do? Ignore the other influences in the world.
I mean, who do you listen to? Do you listen to Hollywood, your parents, or your peers?
Ignore those influences and listen to what John Jacobs has to say. So let's climb this mountain.
I talk to so many young people who say, John, you don't understand. I can't do this and I can't do that, and I'm not good enough to do this, and I wish I could just be this or be that. You've got what it takes. You've just got to be willing to climb. And I want to invite you to go with me on a little trip, because we're going to climb to the top. And I'm going to tell you how to live at the top of the mountain, the ultimate life. I want you to listen. Get ready. Are you ready to climb?
John details, for no apparent reason, his bow hunting passion, which sounds all macho and manly until he drops this little detail.
Before some of you animal lovers get mad at me, I just want to let you know something. I've never killed anything. I just go hunting.
So let me get this straight. This guy just wants to wander the woods with a bow and arrow like he's Rambo, but he doesn't even have the skills to actually kill what he's after? He just likes the aesthetic? Isn't that John Jacobs in a nutshell, though? His entire shtick, this outsized masculinity, it's all performative. He hasn't killed anything because it's the act that counts to him. The fact that he's out there playing the role of the primitive primal male hunter figure is more important than the original point of the exercise, finding food. It's the heart of fundamentalism, going to a Michelin-starred restaurant, but only eating the menu.
The first thing that happened to me when I got out of the truck, the first thing that happened is I looked at my guide, and this man looked at me, the snow was falling. He pointed to the top of the most beautiful mountain. He said, John Jacobs, we're going to go up there. That's where we're going to go. I said, where? He said, up to the top. Do you see the top? He said, fasten your eyes on where we want to go. And don't you forget it. We're going up there. You know the first thing you've got to do if you're going to climb a mountain is you got to fasten your sights on where you want to go.
Okay, so step 1 is have a goal? Am I getting this right, John? Know what you want? Because that's the hardest part of high school, you roided out goober! None of this is useful to a teenager because it fundamentally misunderstands the experience of being a kid, the experience of a life that is almost all potential. Do you want to impress me, John? Show me how to get to the goal before you talk about having one in the first place. But no, first, Don Smith from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, has to pop his top off and smash some cinder blocks real quick.
Get them together. Get them together, Don. They gotta be together. Drop your hips. Drop your hips. They gotta be together.
And what happens next, I can't show you without getting demonetized, so hypocritically, I'm going to ask for a leap of faith here. I swear on my life, the instant he smashes those blocks and it freeze frames on his cheesy beefcake pose, the Ghostbusters theme starts. And it just keeps going all the way through the next part of Jacob's sermon. Top Gun shows up later on, but this is way more distracting. Seriously, go check out this moment on my second channel. When I tell you I cackled the first time I saw it, I mean it. I almost choked on my drink. Ghostbusters almost turned me into a ghost. Anyway, now we have to learn step 2 of John Jacobs' grand plan to give you a life of true excellence.
I started climbing, and I started climbing. Do you know how I made it to the top? I didn't just jump like Superman and land on the top. I made it to the top by climbing one step at a time. And do you know how you're gonna reach your goals and dreams? By living one day at a time.
This man is a cliche factory that's been pressed into wartime service to make cliches for our boys overseas, the way he keeps pumping them out. He has more trite sayings than tight tracksuits, more aphorisms than abs.
You know why so many young people fail? It's because they try to live their whole life in just one teenage year. So, because I couldn't achieve this, and I couldn't be that, I'm gonna give up and quit. You don't have, quit being so hard on yourself. Just live one day at a time.
It's corny, but not entirely useless. Set your goal and make daily progress on it. Don't think too much about your goal, just make progress on it. If he thought about what it would take to climb the mountain, he wouldn't have climbed the mountain. There's nothing novel here. Like a lot of self-help, there's not a lot of how. Nobody in this industry actually has the how. They don't have the answers for you, and this energetic wheel spinning is all part of the circus. Speaking of circus, are you ready for fire? Me too, but first, an apology. I desperately wish I could show you the sheer absurdity of Mike Peterson smashing flaming bricks to the Ghostbusters theme. I really do. It's glorious, life-changing. If you need to see it, again, I have it in full on my second channel where I don't worry about monetization. And instead, I hope you will accept a substitute. I present this gloriously silly clip to you with the backing of a royalty-free sound-alike of Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters theme called, naturally, Ghoul Hunters.
Help me, Mike Peterson!
Close, but just, it's not the same. We're back to John again, who's being very self-deprecating as he describes his mid-hike exhaustion and crisis of conscience.
All of a sudden, my legs, how many of you understand, just because I have a weightlifting championship behind me, or just because I got bench press close to 500 pounds, doesn't mean I can run around the block 5 times. It doesn't mean I have much endurance. Well, I got halfway up that mountain, all of a sudden my legs started feeling like jello.
It's official, John Jacobs skips leg day. It must be said though, isn't this a disastrous self-takedown of his one-day-at-a-time ideology? He's a guy who is literally preaching the value of determination and endurance, and his entire muscular skill set is seemingly only built for short-term bursts of physical prowess. Whoever is editing this thing is a hero, by the way. They get how ridiculous this all is.
The first 660 you ever ran in junior high, you feel like you were gonna die.
Jacobs muses about the importance of having what he calls a good climbing partner here. Good friends, essentially. So what is the advice so far? Have a goal. Work at your goal. Have people that support your goal. This thing is 20 minutes long. I do love Jacobs casting himself as kind of a reluctant protagonist in this, though. He rarely shows anything akin to weakness or vulnerability in his more straightforward evangelical work. Maybe this could have worked for him, who knows? It's still kind of wild to think that the goal Jacobs has set for himself in this whole stupid parable, though, is kill a large and majestic animal with a bow and arrow at the top of a mountain. Quite possibly the least relatable goal to a teenager I have ever heard.
I almost quit! But I set out, used my bow and arrow to kill a trophy. And I almost gave up. But the guy with me, my partner, my climbing partner said, "Come on, John Jacobs. That's a real friend, you know. A real friend will encourage you till you reach your goals and dreams."
That's not a real friend, John. You paid him. That's a guide. He had to get you to the top of the mountain, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, have good friends that support you. Makes sense. Move on. What are we smashing next?
I never will forget. I was almost to the top. I was having a good time climbing to the pine trees. My legs were tired. And this guy said, "Come on, we can do it." When all of a sudden, there lay the most beautiful log I have ever seen. I said, I'm going to sit on this log and hunt right here.
You broke the format. The whole act structure demands violence. Give us smashing.
When I forgot what I was after, I started to sit on that log.
Yes, John, you were after chiseled dudes breaking bricks and blocks with blistering blows, not log stories. Now let's get on with it. You can't quit now.
If you forget what you're after in this life, you're going to end up sitting on a log.
All right, set a goal. Make progress. Have good friends. Don't sit on logs. Cool, no logs.
So many people I meet said, John, tell those young people to get up and to do it. They'll be glad they did. They owe it to themselves.
Okay, we veered entirely out of the point here, JJ. Bring it home.
And once you get near the top, once you start to have that success, don't quit. Don't give up. Don't give in and say, well, I've had some success now. I can rest. I can give up.
Ah, okay. Now I see it. Now it's all coming into focus. This is some proto-grind set nonsense, and I was this close to having fun with it too. It's vague indoctrination to the soulless, crushing, unachievable treadmill of American capitalism. The goal is always a little bit farther away than it seems. It builds, and then it moves, and then you find yourself at what you thought was the top of the mountain, but you look up and all you see is, well, more mountain. If you rest, if you sit down and think for more than a couple of seconds, you'll see that the goal is still as far away as it ever was. You have to stay in this infinite state of becoming, never arriving. So you have to keep moving, keep punching in, keep generating more revenue for whatever thing you're doing that makes somebody else richer. My friends, you are not John Jacobs. You are Sisyphus. You're always on, as John would put it, the edge of excellence. But you'll never quite make it over that edge.
You know what? If you ever take your eyes off where you want to go, if you forget what you're after, you'll stop climbing.
So John has ended his climb. He's made it to the top of the mountain. He blathers on and stumbles around for a bit about how walking at the top of a mountain is just as easy as walking around at the bottom.
At the bottom, you got the little stones. You got your little everyday failures, your mistakes. You got your guilty feelings. You go through those. You know you could be more than what you are. You know you could be something great.
I'm convinced he's either over or under rehearsed this thing, one or the other. For getting through that wildly uncharismatic sputter at the end, though, we're rewarded with what seems like an outtake from the flaming brick busting where the guy doesn't quite cleanly make it through. Thematically resonant. The Top Gun theme starts and John starts to bring it all home. Apathy, you see, is harder than achieving your goals because John knows the secret greatest fear of mankind.
The number one fear is not the fear of dying, but the fear of underachieving. That they know they could be more than what they are.
Look, John boy, not to be pedantic, but the fear of underachieving is, in its own way, the fear of death, the fear of a life that hasn't led to anything. But you can't address that fear, not here at least, not in this venue. But if you show up to the Civic Center on Sunday, well, that's a different story entirely.
It's just as easy, most of the time, to succeed as it is to fail. It's just as easy to make it and to walk in a life of excellence, saying no to the things that could hold you back, than it is to stay at the bottom.
I said it last time and I'll say it again. These videos seem hollow and silly because John Jacobs has, by force, removed the how from the equation. You have the what, but no means of accessing the how. He has the how and he's not permitting himself to tell it to you here for some reason. And you should ask yourself, why? The why is simple. His oversimplified hiking metaphor represents the endless spiritual warfare of his particular brand of evangelism. It's a constant climb. The top of the mountain seems far away because it isn't a corporeal mountain, it's heaven, reshaped in the image of John Jacobs' weird, sensitive ego. Speaking of which, our final feat of strength sees Jacob slamming some concrete blocks to hammer his point home. He shatters the stack, which, I must note, are spaced with little pieces of wood so the impact force from the first break causes a chain reaction that essentially breaks the rest for him, and stands triumphant as a stage light makes it look like the sun shines directly out of his butt. But that's not all, friends. We end with John delivering the longest string of cliched aphorisms I have ever witnessed. Behold.
Don't give up, because every time you get back up, you get stronger, and you get stronger. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Listen, your yesterdays are gone. This is a brand new day. So young person, don't you let anything or anybody keep you from starting out today You ready? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? This is the only life you've got. This is it. So you owe it to yourself. Live it to win.
Beefy Sword Man. That do anything for you? Any Conan the Barbarian fans out there? It's hard to end videos like these. Throughout these videos on the Power Team, you'd think I have a grudge against John Jacobs, and maybe I do, but not in any serious way. He's just a lightning rod for all of the issues I have with that very specific kind of Southern conservative evangelism that shaped me as a child. But the part I do hold a grudge against is how useless all of this was. John had nothing novel to offer other than showmanship, and his advice, it just sucks. Don't follow advice from people who tell you they know all the answers, or you'll wind up paying for sketchy pyramid schemes, or harassing women on the internet, or listening to guys who really wanted to be big, famous Hollywood types, but they're only talented enough to make a ridiculously comfortable living by fooling people into thinking that they have unbreakable logic and principles. The Edge of Excellence isn't about lofty, aspirational life goals. Those can be nice to have, sure, but sometimes learning to thrive in the situation you find yourself in is enough. Hell, sometimes even surviving in and of itself is laudable. Jacobs makes life goals sound like they're these grand aspirational things, and they can be. It's fine to want to be a doctor or a film director or a semi-successful small-size YouTube creator, but sometimes have small, reachable, tangible goals. Those are the best ones. Something as ground level as be a better husband, or as wide as find more empathy for the people around you. On that climb to your goal, don't be afraid to sit on that log and take a break. Take care of yourself. What good is the climb if you're miserable the whole time and your feet are all bloody and blistered? Most importantly, remember that there is no top of the mountain. These goals don't require a peak. No matter where we are on the mountain, it's true that we're all stuck climbing, though. We're all Sisyphus. But remember, the people who do reach those so-called peaks aren't happy. They get to the top and they don't see the view. They see that there's nowhere else to climb. Those who go to the peak know that if someone behind them falls, they have to abandon them to die, and they're fine with that. They do their best to make sure nobody else gets to the peak after them. Not a lot of room at the top of a mountain. Want a better life? Hang out at base camp instead. Build a community of people who've gotten good at climbing with you, but don't want to sacrifice the parts of themselves that make them human to get to the peak. That's where true excellence lies. This got away from me, didn't it? Sorry about that. Anyway, you've been good, so we'll end on a supercut of every time John Jacobs does that little tongue thing.
That's...
Thank you all for watching Too Many Tapes. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon to get updates for when I upload videos. Do you know of any more of these Power Team tapes? Asking for a friend. I've only got one more in my collection. I'm saving it for a special occasion. Let me know in the comments. If you want to help out a small YouTube channel, consider donating $1 or more a month to my Patreon. Over the last 4 or 5 years, you helped me grow from editing videos on a laptop that I shot in front of a blue curtain to being able to do green screen compositing while shooting in 6K. Basically, you made my life more complicated, but thank you for that, seriously. If you donate $50 or more a month like Cammy, you're already on the edge of excellence, and you get a movie recommendation. This month, if you're looking for big stunts and even bigger laughs, you can't go wrong with 2007's Hot Rod. Panned at the time it came out, this story of a wannabe stuntman created by the Lonely Island has managed to grow into a cult comedy that somehow gets better with every viewing. If you donate $20 or more a month, you're NATO Kitsch, and you could probably smash through a bunch of 2x4s if you put your mind to it. For $10 or more a month, you're part of my super strong strength squad, 4S for short. Yet another of my legally distinct cadres of buff dudes, dudettes, and non-binarudes, and your names in the credits are all swole! And for $5 a month, you're hanging out with me at base camp. And we'll share a hot cocoa while you get early access to my videos. Thank you all again for watching, and I'll see you next time on Too Many Tapes.
Shut up and sit down.